gamers all around, you know. Today, I'm going to be talking about when to get economic upgrades in Age of Empires 4, and we're going to cover some of the different specific stuff, and we're going to cover pretty much, like you see on the screen, these upgrades. We're not going to be going into trade because it's economy, but it's not economy upgrading. So here we go. Question number one that happens very often is when to get Wheelbarrow. Now, I do want to say and mention something first. There are a lot of like calculators to, like, if you get this upgrade, it takes 2 minutes to pay off. Now, those are correct, right? If you get an upgrade and if it says it pays off in 3 minutes, a lot of people assume like, oh, if I get this now, it's only gonna be good in 3 minutes kind of thing. But the way that it works in actual games is a lot of the games are very extended. So we're in the meta where sometimes extended feudal is long. Sometimes you can have a feudal age of 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. So the earlier you get your upgrades, obviously without dying or losing villagers, the more value you will get out of them. So the first one is when to get Wheelbarrow. Now, or when to not get it, right? When to skip Wheelbarrow. So I'll start with when to not get Wheelbarrow, because that one is easier to explain. If you choose to skip Wheelbarrow, you are most likely either doing some Omega all-in, maybe you're fighting on like a water map or something and you just don't have resources to get Wheelbarrow, you're not planning for a long game, like you're trying to all-in like sub 10 minutes and just fully commit. Or if you're doing a castle rush build, for example, with HRE, which is a very popular, it's a good example. If you're playing HRE and you're rushing castle to try to get relics, you usually skip Wheelbarrow because it's 200 resources that you can get to castle faster. So usually it's either when you're rushing to kill your opponent or rushing to age up to castle or whatever else. Any other time, in my opinion, you should get Wheelbarrow, no matter what civ you're playing, because there's multiple reasons. Number one, a Wheelbarrow is great for any resource gathering because you carry 5 more, so your villagers will need to move back and forth to drop off resources less. So whether you're on deer or berries or wood, you will get a lot of value from that. Because, you know, instead of villager moving back and forth 3 times to the lumber camp or mill, it would only need to move 2 times because it can carry extra 5. So even if you're fighting in feudal, like let's say you're all-inning in feudal, not like super hard all-in, but you want to fight in feudal, you want to pressure in feudal, getting Wheelbarrow over time will basically give you more army because you will have more resources. If you're trying to play 2 TC or 3 TC, the reason why Wheelbarrow is great, and that's why you see Abbasid, for example, get Wheelbarrow as they're aging up. Even though you want to get your TC as fast as possible, you also want to get the movement speed, which is very important. So let's go on to the movement speed. Why is movement speed important, and why is it hard to calculate when it's worth it? Well, movement speed, if you ever played AoE 4, you will know that your villagers being able to run away from knights or horsemen or raids and not have Wheelbarrow and die is very visible. Like you can clearly see when the opponent doesn't have Wheelbarrow or when you're missing it. It's a lot harder to run away, and even if you were to save 1 villager with Wheelbarrow movement speed, it's worth it already. Not to mention all the other stuff it gives you. A villager gathers 40 resources a minute. So if you lose a villager, the amount of resources you're going to lose for the rest of the game is insane. And Wheelbarrow does save villagers quite a lot. If you're, like I said, Abbasid and you want to go for 2 TC only, let's say, or 3 or 4, doesn't matter, you usually want to put your TC on berries or on deer or whatever else, which is out on the map. So also having Wheelbarrow will allow you to get there faster, build a TC faster, so there's less chance of you losing villagers, but also because you arrive there faster, you will start gathering again faster, thus giving you resources in that way as well. And these are the things that, in my opinion, are hard to calculate and hard to prove by simply saying, if you get it, you need this long to pay off. Wheelbarrow is really good upgrade, and this is why, you know, at the start of the game, not many civs were getting Wheelbarrow. Very few did actually, but these days at the pro level, pretty much you get Wheelbarrow with every sieve because it's just really, really good. For multiple reasons. It's probably the best eco upgrade in the game. Alright, let's move on to the next one, which is gonna be Forestry. So when to get Forestry, people don't really know, is this even worth it? It's not that expensive. I feel like a lot of people get it because it's like, well, it's not expensive, so let me just get it. Forestry, basically what it does for you, right? Because sometimes you don't think about these things. Double the rate at which villagers chop down trees. Now, this is only for the initial chop. So in order for the tree to go down, it needs to be chopped 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, villager goes down, and then your tree goes down, and then your villager can start gathering wood. So what Forestry does is it makes it so that you don't need to tap the tree 4 times, you need to tap it twice. This might seem like, oh, that's a lot better. But if you have like 20 villager on woodline, right? And let's say they're mowing down 5 trees at a time, right? They're 4 on each tree. Basically, whether you do or not have Forestry, 4 villagers hitting tree once will get it down. Sometimes you will get value from Forestry. Most of the time it won't really matter. You know, because you'll have so many villagers on woodline, there's going to be multiple villagers hitting that tree and knocking it down. This does not actually increase your gather rate on, the wood itself. It just counts for the knocking down of the tree. The upgrade itself is not that great, even though it's very cheap. This is probably one of the last upgrades you want to get. So it is not very worth. I think even resource-wise, like if you look math, it takes like couple of minutes to pay off, and it's just not that great in my opinion. If you think about it, let's say you're chopping tree with 1 villager. It takes 4 hits, and every second you do a hit, right? When you do a chop. If you get this upgrade, it's going to take 2 seconds. So your villager will start gathering that tree 2 seconds earlier, which would be equivalent of 2 wood. Every tree, which is 150 wood. It's just not a lot. And that's assuming worst case scenario, which is 1 villager's chopping the new tree, which is most likely not going to happen. I would probably average it out, like you get an extra wood per tree or something like that. It's just not that good. But if you have extra resources or whatever, I mean, get it. Why not? When to get survival techniques? Now, this is a question that a lot of people, ask as well. So let me first explain. Survival techniques only works on deer and boar. That's it. It does not work on anything else. A lot of people think this works on cows, on sheep, on fish. It does not. No eco upgrades work on fish for your villagers. And Malian cows and sheep from, normal sheep or Mongol sheep, they scale with horticulture. These are the upgrades you want to get for them. So survival techniques only works on deer and boar. So when do you get survival techniques? Now, the civs that usually get survival techniques are the civs that will want to go for at least 2 out of the 3 resources on the map, because usually you have 2 deer packs and a boar. So if you're planning to get 2 deer packs, I would suggest you get survival techniques, or some civs that you see very often get this upgrade, which are Rus and French mostly, because they will not only go for 2 deer, but they will also go for the boar. So they will get their value, and 15% gather rate on, what is that, 350, 7, 2450, I'm doing maths, 2.9, it's 4,900 food, I think, if I calculated that correctly. No, it's more, 6,900 food, right? For 2 deer packs and boar. So gathering all that 15% faster for only 100 resources, in my opinion, is very much worth it because it's very tempo based. But if you're gonna go with like, let's say English and you're on Hill and Dale, should you get survival techniques just to get the first pack? Probably not. Unless you're planning to go on the second deer pack and at least, I would skip it. So if you're playing on Hill and Dale and you have a deer pack right next to your TC, I would probably skip it unless you plan to go for at least 2 or more. Someone asked a question earlier, if I'm Delhi and I spawn next to deer, so again, Hill and Dale, do I get Wheelbarrow first or Survival Techniques? In that case, you would get Survival Techniques with Delhi because it's free, and it will actually, well, it's gonna pay off pretty quickly because number one, it finishes actually pretty quickly for Delhi, Survival Techniques, and number two, it's free. So yeah, just get it, even if you're gonna go for only one. But that's only with Delhi, and that's only if you have deer spawning next to you. I mean, obviously, eventually with Delhi, you're gonna get Survival Techniques anyway, right? All right, next one. When to get level 1 upgrades. Now, this is the most complicated one, and it's probably gonna take the most time. When to get level 1 upgrades. So level 1 upgrades are Horticulture, Double Broadaxe, and Specialized Pick. So when do you get these exactly? I'm gonna skip Pro Scouts because, I mean, you go Pro Scouts with certain civs if you want to. It's not a requirement. You can just skip it with every civ, so I'm not gonna go into it. So Horticulture, Double Broadaxe, Specialized Pick. When do you go for these upgrades? The simplest answer, and the most true one as well, is you go for these eco upgrades depending on how committed you plan to be on those resources. Now, before, again, when we didn't know exactly how AOE4 works in the economy, people would just put, you know, they would just get it eventually. There was like a rule in Age 3 you get Age 2 upgrades, and Age 4 you get Age 3 upgrades, something like that. But the simple answer, to not make this too overcomplicated, if you're playing English and you want to all in feudal with the build that I showed you guys, I have a guide on it, then get both Double Broadaxe and Horticulture. Why? Because you're going to be on sheep, and then you're going to be onto the farms, and you're going to be having a lot of villagers on the wood. So you will get your value economically. And again, if you check that English guide, I explain that, you know, first 6-7 minutes you will have less units, but later on your unit count will drastically increase because you're getting so many more resources. If you're playing, for example, French, and you're going on deer and boar first, and you're making a lot of knights, what you can open with, and archers, for example. In that case, you would skip Horticulture for a bit until you're done with deer and boar, and maybe you would open with Double Broadaxe, and if you have like 8 villagers or more on mining, you would get the mining upgrade together with Survival Techniques. That's what makes the most sense. And just before you're about to run out of deer and boar, you get the Horticulture, so then you can collect sheep and berries and get increased gather rate there too. So in general, depending on your villager allocation, that's the upgrades you want to prioritize and get as fast as possible. Now, I do have guides for pretty much every civ, and I should update a lot of them, and you will see the timings on the upgrades, but generally, the earlier you get them, the more value you'll have. But obviously, the moment you age up, you don't want to like not make anything and just click all the upgrades, right? There's a fine balance. So if you're playing HRE, right, and you're rushing castle and you have 3 on wood, do I need to get Double Broadaxe? I don't, right? But if I get Horticulture and I have 20 villagers on sheep, then obviously that's going to give you immediate value. That's going to make your castle age up faster, even though you're investing resources into it. So if you're HRE, again, I'll use HRE example, and you have like 5 on gold and 20 on food, it would be good to get Horticulture. You will get the age up fast, and you're going to get value because you're going to build farms with Akin Chapel. But maybe you will skip Specialized Mining until you start aging up to castle. Get it then, because then you will put more villagers onto the gold for knights, for landshits, for men-at-arms, for prelates, and then you're going to get more value out of that. So you don't want to get an upgrade just because you're on it with 5 villagers. I would say a good rule, in my opinion, would be if you're going to have more than 10 villagers on that resource for extended period of time, aka 5 minutes plus, without swapping them back and forth, the eco upgrades will be worth it. Because most of the games don't like last 10 minutes, they last 20-30 minutes. So if you're gonna get those upgrades, you might as well get them early and get more resources early. But obviously, like I said, don't get all of them at the same time. So H2 upgrades, when to get those. Now these ones are not quite as simple as simply explained as level 1 upgrades, and those are these upgrades right here, because number 1, they cost more, and number 2, whenever you enter castle, there's usually something going on. You're either getting all in, you're either all inning the opponent. So for example, if you're all inning the opponent and they're like, you're doing it successfully, they're dying, you don't want to queue up your eco upgrades, because you will not get immediate value. So the most immediate value you would get by aging up to castle would be getting relics, would be making more units to harass your opponent, maybe walling off your side of the map. That's the most value you will get for your resources. Now, if you're playing a boom civ like China or Abbasid and you have plenty of resources, then get them immediately. Because not only you have more resources, you have more income to play with, you also have more villagers, so you will get a lot more value from all 3 of these upgrades. And again, if you're playing, HRE and you got 6 on wood in castle and everything is on gold and food, then you can skip the second upgrade for lumber until you put more villagers on wood, or at least plan to put more villagers on wood, so you can go farms and so on and so forth. So I would say the only like specific times you would get your upgrades in AoE 4, these first ones are level 1 upgrades. I think each civ has a proper timing and when to do it, which you can see in a lot of my guides. Level 2 upgrades are a lot more freestyle based on how the game is going and where the game is at, which is hard for me to tell you, get it 1 minute into castle, because you might be dying to 4 rams. So that's how you should think about it. Now, I'm not going to talk about when to get level 3 upgrades, because the same rule applies for level 3 upgrades like level 2 upgrades, like I just talked about. But I am going to mention a question someone had earlier. Are level 3 upgrades even worth it? So we used to have these upgrades cost 300, 700, and basically people were not getting eco upgrades level 3 because they were too expensive. So it would cost so long to pay off. Now, do you get these or no? Precision, crossbreeding, you get 100% when you have enough resources. So nothing to rush, nothing to be like, oh, that's the first upgrade I want to get. But you do want to get it. Why? Because no matter what civ you play, you will be on farms, and you will usually have between 40 and 60 villagers on farms. Again, you don't know how long the game is going to go, if it's going to go 10 minutes after each Imperial or 30, but you will get value 100%. Do you get crosscut saw? Now, this depends on what map you're playing on. Again, if you have insane amounts of resources, you're trading, or you're China or you're Abbasid, and you got so many resources you don't care, yeah, get it, sure. If you're running out of resources, or you don't have enough resources to just throw in random upgrades, I would suggest to look at it this way. This is an upgrade you can skip on maps like Dry Arabia, on maps like Lipany, on maps where there is normal amount of wood. On maps like Volcanic Island or Hideout, I would 100% get these, because there is so much wood. You will not run out of wood anytime soon in the game. So the game has like a bigger potential to go a lot longer, so you have more time for this upgrade to pay off. But again, you don't need to rush it, okay? You don't need to get Imperial and get this upgrade first. But you probably want to get it eventually if you're playing on maps with more wood on them in general. And the last one is Cupellation. The only time I would get this upgrade, now this is the one you get the least. The only time I would get this upgrade is when you are, again, stacked on resources or something, but even then I skip it a lot of the time. The only map that I would say this upgrade is worth on is Hill and Dale. Why? Well, because it has way more stone and way more gold than any other map. So if there's any map in the future that has insane amounts of stone and gold, you can get this, because 15% gather rate with like 40-50 villagers on stone/gold, divided, is quite a lot, and it will give you a lot of value. Yeah, you can do it on Golden Heights too, but Golden Heights is usually, I mean, you can, yeah, sure. But you get the idea. If there's a lot of resources for it, go for it. I'm running out of time. I gotta speed up, Monka. I gotta leave in 7 minutes. Wee-wee. Next question was fishing upgrades and when to get them. Fishing is very simple. Usually the way that water maps work, I'm talking Boulder Bay and Mediterranean. If you're playing hybrid maps where you have like few fishing things, you can skip fishing upgrades. You don't need it because the fish will run out. Or if you're playing Golden Heights with just 3 deep water fish, you can skip eco upgrades for water, which is the fishing upgrades. If you're playing on Boulder Bay or Mediterranean, you will usually make X amount of fishing ships, and then you will only pump out military ships until you take control of the water. Once you have taken control of the water, after you have 15 fishing ships or more, that's when you want to get the upgrade. You do not get upgrade while you're still fighting on water, only after you have won the water. Now there's a level 1 fishing upgrade and level 2. Let me see if I can try to find it. The level 1 is nice. It increases gather rate and carry capacity. You can also get it after 10, 12 fishing ships, but after you won the water, after the opponent has no presence. The second one is more important because it increases the gathering rate, carry capacity again, and movement speed for your fishing ships. So these upgrades, the bigger the lake and the more distance your ships need to cover, the more value you will get from this. So if your deep water fish are quite far away, this upgrade will be much better than if fish were right next to your docks, right? Even though it has an improved gather rate, the carry capacity is the good stuff. All right. Does it apply to shoreline fish? Yes, it does. But again, if you're playing on a map that has only shoreline fish or only 1, 2, 3 deep water fish, I will probably skip these because you will run out of resources. So it doesn't help you. Next one, textiles. Now textiles is not technically an eco upgrade, but it's not a military upgrade. Someone asked, so let's cover it. When to get textiles. At the pro level play, you skip textiles very often because it's 150 resources. You also lose a villager by getting textiles because you are not producing a villager, you're upgrading textiles. So at the pro level, people try to skip textiles for quite a long time until the game gets too messy. My suggestion is get textiles whenever you feel like you need it in a game. So if you're a gold league and you always lose a villager to French Knights, whenever the French Knights arrive, you lose a villager. The moment you age up, you can just get textiles. If it saves you a villager, it paid off. So that's how you should look at it. If you start losing villagers at 8 minutes, then get textiles around 8 minutes or just before that happens in your games. There's no real time when it's proper to get it. It's as long as you save villagers with it, it was a good investment. But obviously you should aim to not lose villagers so you can actually skip textiles and have more villagers. Fresh foodstuffs and Crescent Fertile thing, whatever it's called. Crescent Fertiles you get immediately. That's the Abbasid House of Wisdom upgrade that reduces the cost of economic buildings and houses. You get that immediately as you age up. No way around it. Fresh foodstuffs. This has been buffed recently. It only costs 75 gold. I personally, general rule of thumb is this upgrade is good to get the moment your second TC is finishing, but recently I've been experimenting about getting it the moment I age up, because sometimes if your TC is delayed or something, again, the earlier you got this upgrade, the more value you will get out of it, and you will run out, you basically reduce the chance of you running out of food. So again, the general rule is when your second TC is finishing, you want this upgrade to finish, but experiment with getting it the moment you age up as well. Next one, HRE Monastery Upgrade for Eco. That's the one where if they're inspired, they gather, I think it's 10% more. It's a very good upgrade. It's basically like a 5% weaker of the normal Eco upgrades. If you do have like 20-25 villagers plus on farms, it's definitely an upgrade that's worth to get around your chapel, but it's also a very expensive upgrade, so you should not rush it, and it only works on inspired villagers, so this is only going to be for your chapel villagers, so you know, gonna have to think accordingly. Last two, China tax collection upgrade. When to get it. You will usually have tax collectors go around and you know, collect stuff, and you're not always gonna have them supervising like 4 different buildings. I usually like to get it after I have 4 what do they call, imperial officials, and I'm done with mining stone. So 1 imperial official is on gold, 1 is on food, 1 is on wood, and then 4th is going around and gathering the gold. And basically, the more villagers you have, the more tax you will have in the buildings. So we'll actually need that upgrade for you to actually take the gold out. Otherwise, the gold is just going to be stacking, especially on the first mill. So I would say after the 4th imperial official and after you get your TC, get it. But obviously, if you're playing China, prioritize the other stuff first, which is horticulture, double broad axe, you know, military upgrades, and so on and so forth. And then you can get the tax upgrade thing, because it's not something you need to rush by any means. And the last one I'll be talking about is Mongol improved upgrades. Now, I do want to do some tests with getting Mongol improved upgrades super early. You guys should remind me tomorrow, the day after. I want to test around with that, where I get Mongol improved upgrades. Those are the upgrades that cost stone to upgrade. Super early, like I wanted to try them, doing them in like feudal or castle even. But general rule of thumb, as of right now, if you're playing Mongol, do not get them until late imperial. So what I mean by late imperial is when you're like trading and you're getting stone with trade, and you have bombard towers, and you know, you got all the other upgrades, and now you can get eco upgrades as well with stone. And probably the upgrades that I would get, by the way, are not like the specialized pick. I probably would not get that. Can I not see improved upgrades here? I guess I can. I would probably get like horticulture improved upgrade for stone, because that one you will have the most villagers. You will have like 50-60 villagers and sheep. Same reason you don't want to get like level 3 crosscut saw or cupellation is the same thing. I probably wouldn't waste stone on that. Instead, I would get food upgrades for stone with Mongol in late imperial, and then probably use that stone to upgrade, like improve military upgrades or get bombard towers. I think that's it. I don't know if this was helpful. I haven't made like a video like this before. I hope you guys learned something new. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video. One of the next videos I also want to do is which military upgrades to prioritize when you age up. So, like, do I get blacksmith upgrades? Do I get spearman upgrade? Do I get crossbow upgrade, archer upgrade, or whatever? So that's another video I want to make. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something new. Check me out on Twitch. I'm probably live right now. If you're watching on Twitch, let's keep going.